It runs, but it's missing one cylinder still, and it's the same code. I could insert a screenshot of the code reader somewhere, and cylinder 3 is not firing. So cylinder 3 is not firing on this this 3-liter. I just did a video on how to do the valve cover gaskets and spark plugs and all that. It is not the easiest thing to do on the rear side, but the problem is now is diagnosing the computer that fault. Ford has a service bulletin on this. What happens is when a coil melts, it melts something in the computer. So right now, I bought this car at auction and I'm trying to flip it, and I thought I had a fault code for coil pack and I had oil in the spark plug holes, so I changed that. And now I didn't realize that I thought this was just a bad coil. I already had a coil and replace it. Now we have another issue. Now that this is all back together, the car is still not running on that cylinder. They're still throwing a code. I have a Noid light set, which basically, as you can see, that is an LED light, and it has 2 prongs on there, and it goes into the clip of the spark plug or an injector. So this light will flash every time it gets a signal from the computer. So right now it's not signaling. I put it on cylinder 6 and it flashes. I put it on 2 of the other cylinders on the front. They're not as strong. The weakest one would be cylinder 4 here, and that is an upgraded coil from another one, so that might have another burnt spot in the computer itself. It's weaker, but it is firing and it's not throwing a code, so we're not going to consider that one broken. The one we're having is cylinder C, which is cylinder 3. It goes 1, 2, 3 in the back, 4, 5, 6 on the front, from left to right when you're looking at the front of the car. So we diagnosed that. Coil wasn't firing. Check the check engine code. Same cylinder. Next thing you do is take multimeter. The easiest was this Noid light, and you get this at Harbor Freight. It's a cheap set. Plug that in there. If you're not getting a signal, then the computer is not firing through the wiring harness to this Noid light, or the computer is firing, but it loses signal somewhere in the wire, so it has a broken wire. So now how we diagnose that from here? So this is not firing, so we'll put this Noid light back. We already know that wiring. Okay, we're at the back of the motor. Let me grab a light here. I'm able to get to this cylinder back here. If you can see, I got the clip here. So you're able just to plug the 2 prongs from that light into there. So how do we go from here? So the computer is not firing to this clip. So what we have to do is diagnose whether it's either the computer or the wiring. I will include a screenshot of the diagram that I found. So right now we're going to check continuity between the clip here. It's going to be hard for me to show you the colors. Each coil wiring has a similar color, gray. And as you can see, it is on the right side of this. They all have a gray one. 1 through 6 all have a common color, gray. That is a power color in this case. And this one is a white and brown for cylinder 3. White with a brown stripe. So what we're going to do is take the multimeter from one end here to down here behind the master cylinder. We're going to pull the battery and the battery tray out and pull the computer out. And we're going to pull out the connector for the computer. So we're going to find the terminal that goes from that clip to there. I think it's, don't quote me yet because I'll put the schematic in, or the diagram. It is pin 15 on the connector there will go to the white and brown wire. And if you're getting an ohm reading between them, this is the ohm symbol. And I'm not sure where do we want to set this just yet, but we'll figure it out. I'll show you exactly what I figure out. You can do this with any ohm meter. This is just Okay, so when I touch the two terminals together, we get a signal. Okay, so that setting will work. So if you connect this to one end of the wire and then this to another end of the wire, if you're not getting a reading between them, like I just showed you, that means they're not connected. That means there's a break in the wire or something's not plugged in. So if you do get an ohms reading from there to there, next thing you would check is if you're getting power. There should be a constant power at the gray wire at all times. All of these. That it doesn't matter if the car's not doing anything, or if you're not getting a signal. There should be a power at all times. What fires the coil pack is a ground signal from the PCM or ECU. It works same with most any modern day motors. Ground, same thing with injectors, everything like that. You can use that for a lot of things. The ground fires the electric fans, ground fires a whole lot of stuff. The computer doesn't send power, it sends ground. So we'll just test that and see if it has power, and if it does, and it has an ohm reading between it, then we have a PCM problem. You can have the PCM reflashed at the dealer after you get a new one, or you can get a junkyard PCM, which for me, a local pull yard, if they have one, it's like 45-minute drive. If they have one, it'd be like $75, and then $125 to get the car programmed. If not, any other expenses towing it to the dealer. Or there's this company, I'll insert a link to their website. Apparently this is a really common problem and they do this a lot. $300, you mail them the computer, they'll mail it back to you. Supposedly it takes 3 days and you'll have it back to you. That's what I've heard. So right now I haven't diagnosed it yet. I'm going to update you as I do it, but I'm going to test the wiring, and then if that checks out, we will be pulling the computer out and sending it out to them. One other way to tell that if you have or don't have a problem is this fuse here, 43. That is the fuse for coil unplug. So all the coil packs get the power through there. There's very little power that goes into the coils, and there's two like inductors, I think they call them, inside the coil that like magnetizes the power, and that's what gives it a high frequency or high voltage signal to the actual spark plug to ignite. But if this fuse is blown, then you have a power from like the battery to here, or you have a problem from the actual wire of the coil pack to the fuse, the one side of the fuse. So what you could do is test that from here to there also. Just want to show you that. My fuse is not blown, so I'm going to be testing battery voltage and that ohms from the computer to the other one. So right now I'm working on pulling the battery out, and then the battery tray. Basically, to pull the battery out is 10 mils here, and then there's 8 mils on the terminals. Pull the battery out, and then there's a couple bolts on the tray itself. Okay, the battery tray came out. There's a clip here for the wiring harness and a clip here. I cut this one, I couldn't get it out. This one was already broken. 10 mil nut, 10 mil bolt. You can see here. But once you get that out of the way, you pull the tray out, and then I disconnected the computer. There's 2 bolts up here, 10 mils, and there's 2 at the bottom. They're quite hard to get to, and you could just slide the computer out. Okay, I have the computer out, and what I did was I took a little pick and I just pulled this little piece out. It just slides in and out. It aligns all the pins, and it's not labeled as good as like a GM harness that I'm used to. So here's what I did. I'll show you how I figured out where I wanted to target. So this computer sat up in the car like this. You could see that's pin 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And it goes all the way to 17. And then this one starts 18 and it ends at 33. So on and so forth. I'm looking for cylinder 3. I am including the diagram, which is pin 15, which would be top row, third from the end. How I figured out which connector it was, because there's 2 connectors, and this is also 1 through 18, and you know, same thing. I looked at the harness, and this top plug is the one I want because it goes up, down there, and then comes straight up and goes right to the coil packs. Go between the one wire. Here. You see what I'm doing down there? I'm just probing the one side of the wire, which is that white and brown one I was telling you about. And then this terminal, let me move the light back over here now. It's going to be, if you're looking at the connector where it was plugged into the computer, it was the top row here at the very end. It'd be 1, 2, 3, and then that would be 17 at the end. So I'm looking for the third one from the end on the top row on the, with a connector like that. So I'm just going to touch this probe to there, and then that one to the other coil pack, and then we're going to watch the multimeter. Terminal on the coil wire plugged in now, and then now I have the other lead going. Can you see that? There we go. So now I'll take it off, touch a different wire, nothing again, and then boom, continuity. So that leads me to believe that it is 100% the computer. But we're gonna continuity test the other side. Not exactly sure, because I don't know where the other end of this ties into. Oh, look at that shit. Nothing, one side of the fuse to the other side. We got continuity. That means we got power from the fuse box to that coil wire. From the one wire to there, like I showed you, and then I went from the other wire on the coil pack to this side of the fuse and had continuity between them. So that means the battery voltage, I bet if I check from the positive here to this side of the fuse, it would have continuity between that, because that's the side that would get power from the battery. So that gets power from the battery from underneath in the wire to this side, and that goes to the coil pack. The other one goes from the computer that triggers ground all the way through. So here's the computer. I tried taking it apart to look at it to see if there's anything burnt in there, but I can't take it apart, and I don't want to damage it any more than it may be. We're going to wrap it up for now. And if there's any updates or questions, ask me. I'll let you know how it goes. But it should be straightforward of putting the computer back in, plugging it back in when I get it back, and just starting the car up. There's a new coil in the back. They recommend changing all the coils, but these ones tested out fine. You could also do a coil pack test. You could look that video up on YouTube. I'm sure there's many videos like that.